batter comes up, and what happens? The next ball comes right at you, and it decides to take a wacky bounce left. And then you look like a fool, and now you're really kind of, pissed. So then what happens? The next ball comes right at you, and you're ready to go left, and you're ready to go right, and it goes right between your legs. Nice clean shot. What we used to say, that's the baseball gods messing with you. The baseball gods are showing you that they control the game, and there's nothing you can do. They control the ball. Well, the traffic gods are just like that. I think they're cousins. The baseball gods is right next to each other, and they compare notes every night, and they figure out how much they're going to screw with all of us. Man, if you have to play baseball and then you get stuck in traffic, oh, you just might as well end your life. That's it. Just give up. Jump off a cliff. That's all. Anyway, Jesse Terrero with you, and I'm on my way coming into the studio, and so every time this happens, we go live. We tried to Skype, but I forgot my Skype number. I forgot my Skype email. I forgot my Skype password. I'm lucky I have the Skype app still on my phone. It's insane. I don't know what's happening. I think it's a coup de grace. I think what's happening this week to me is that everything wants to mess with me this week. You ever feel like that, where no matter what you do, no matter how you put on that happy face, no matter how positive your energy is, it's just like everything you do wants to mess with you. Everything. You go to the gym, you put some weights on the bar, and what happens? The weights fall off the other end of the bar, right? You get in your car, you're ready to go home, and what happens? You got a flat tire, right? 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 You pull out the pen, an important business meeting to take notes, and what happens? The pen decides not to have any more ink, right? You know what I mean? You get up in the morning, and you try to comb your hair, and it doesn't work out, so you use a bunch of hairspray, and your hair looks like Steven Seagal's hair. Rock solid, hard. It's like the day, everything is messing with you. The whole week, everything is messing with you. Well, that's what I feel like this week. In fact, I got so many people messing with me right now. I just had a car just almost hit me on the left-hand side, and a car almost hit me on the right-hand side. I mean, this guy in his white Nissan Frontier truck, I should give his license plate out. That's what I'm going to do. Where's he from? He's not even from California, so I'm going to give his license plate out. That's what I'm going to sit up there. AN83619. AN83619. He's like deciding that he wants to cut in front of me. And, he's got a truck with a bent bumper, so of course I'm going to let him cut in front of the Gray Ghost. Man, I'll tell you. It's the traffic that stresses us all out in this world. I think if we didn't have any traffic, if you didn't have any traffic on your commute home or your commute to pick up your kids or your commute to work through the day and the evening, if you didn't have any traffic to contend with, how blissful our life would be, how easy our middle-class lifestyle would be. I remember when, way back in time long forgotten. That's what I'm going to turn into. I'm going to turn into a little old man that's going to live in the yesteryear world, But I think I do remember when there was a lot less traffic. Boy, life just seemed to roll along and pop along with no problems or issues at all. You got to work, you weren't stressed out. You got to school, you got to your baseball field or soccer field or football field. You weren't stressed out. You got to dinner. You weren't stressed out. I think it's a grand design. That's what I think. It's a grand design that they're going to make everybody get their driver's license and get a car just to mess with me and stress me out. Yep, that's it. That's it. That's what it is. They're all coming to get me. Right. You ever feel like that? Wow. All right. Take a deep breath, my mother used to say. All right. So it's the Jesse T Show, and since we are talking about driving, and we are talking about getting from one point to the other in the middle of the day, if that's what your job is all about. We are talking about going from A to B because you got to get there in a certain amount of time. We're talking about, generally that's what the middle class does. The middle class are the ones that have the cars in this nation. I think that's how you rate our economic prowess in our family. Is what kind of car is sitting in our driveway? Is it the car that you bought at the auction for $500 and you're just barely keeping it together and it looks like Chitty Chitty Bang Bang? Remember that Dick Van Dyke movie from way back when? Oh, yeah, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, we love you. Remember that car? It sputtered and puffed and choked. Those are cars you buy at the auction for $500, just to get you around a little bit, right? They all got a problem. Or, do you have a car every 3 or 4 years, a new lease car? Or is a Bentley sitting in your driveway? Usually Bentleys aren't sitting in the driveway. They're sitting in the 17-car garage. So, I think we can rate the middle class of America or Americans and the social economic structure by the type of cars they drive to some degree. A lot of people drive cars that really they can't afford. I once had a Lamborghini a long time ago. I had it for about a month. I bought it in Irvine. And when I was in Irvine, it was the only Lamborghini dealer that there ever was in Southern California. It was the first one. And I knew the guy because I had built an Amway business to the direct level. Oh, we're talking 20 years ago. Yeah, I was one of those Amway guys. Come on now, don't laugh. I was selling soap door to door. You bet. I was doing that soap thing. It was cool. You bet. The Amway thing. It did well until they decided to change the paradigm and go on the internet, and there was no such thing as a working internet in 1997, even though they tried. Destroyed my whole business. But anyhow, I tried this Lamborghini. I was either buy a house or buy a Lamborghini. So I bought a Lamborghini. So I had a buddy of mine who was in the Amway business, and he owned a dealership down in Irvine. And so I went out there, and I test drove the car, and it was terrific and scared the living daylights out of me. I couldn't get out of third gear. I was doing like 125 miles an hour in third gear, and it was a 5-speed. It just freaked me out. You have no idea how fast that car was. I mean, those cars are. It's unbelievable. So I bought it, right? And then what I didn't realize and what I didn't know is that you're not supposed to drive those cars every single day. Because when you drive those cars every single day, I was a young guy, so I'm driving that car every single day. I'm a big guy in Southern California. Ho, look at me. You talk about a magnet for loving, baby. Oh, yeah, Lamborghini loving. You talk about a magnet. Oh, my goodness. Anyway, but what I didn't realize that in the car, it was designed in the car that when you needed a tune-up, the car told you, I need a tune-up. And even way back then, I mean, it didn't talk to you at that time. Now it talks to you. But what it did is the car would what do they call it? They would down tune the car. It was like it was detuned. Okay? When it needed a tune-up, the car would automatically shut down part of the horsepower automatically to protect the engine from the tune-up and the oil change that you had to do. So anyhow, I brought the car into the dealership because I couldn't drive it, so I had to have it towed in from the San Fernando Valley to Irvine. And so they tuned it up, and they did the oil change and the lube job and the filter, and they did all the things that service of that car. And so I went to pick it up, and I went to get it, and I went to pay for the bill. And this is like 1989, right? I went to pay for the bill, right? 1989. Okay, ready? $5,000. I went, what? $5,000. What? Yeah, I never stammered or stuttered in my life so much. $5,000. Now, luckily, I had a credit card that had a $20,000 limit on it at that time. But I said, "What the heck is 5,000?" Well, what it was is that everything on that car had to be imported from Italy. It's a Lamborghini, and you paid for it. Was basically a race car. So they used, the most expensive wires, the most expensive spark plugs, the most expensive. Everything was $400. Well, that's the day I went to my buddy Tony and I said, "Tony, I got this bill here for $5,000 to tune up the car. Tell you what, Tony, can we do this? Can I sell you the car back? And can we do something about the $5,000? So we eventually worked out a deal, and I walked out the front door of the Lamborghini dealer, taking a taxi cab all the way back to the San Fernando Valley, which cost me like, $200 at the time, or $175 at the time. And I went to the auction, and I bought a "Oh, you chitty chitty bang bang, chitty chitty bang bang, we love you, yes, you." That's what I did. So you see, you can judge. I think we can judge Americans by the cars that they drive, because certainly I couldn't afford that car to keep it running. That was beyond my ability to do that, and I learned a lesson there: never buy a exotic sports car ever again the rest of my life. But here's the point. Middle-class America has really changed over the years, and we've talked about this several times. We've talked about this on a couple of other occasions. But middle-class America is becoming a very important item now, as people are starting to think where they place themselves in their lives in comparison to their parents or their grandparents. Where are they financially, economically, educationally? Where are they socially in their lives now as Americans start to move into their mid-30s and into their mid-40s in terms of the middle-class America, the middle group of America, and as the baby boomers move out of the workforce and move out into retirement at vast and large numbers every day now, the baby boomers, as they get older, are turning over the keys to the store to the next generation, the Generation X, and they're starting to look at themselves now and try to figure out where they are placed in terms of their economic ideology and where their pocketbook is. And it's becoming more and more, you're seeing more and more articles about that in relationship from the middle class of this generation right now to the middle class of us baby boomers. And I might add, our middle class was very different than the middle class today. It doesn't really matter where you came from, what part of the country you resided from, or what religion you were, or anything like that. The middle class of our time, we perceived ourselves in sort of a different social, economic, and educational structure than they do today. We were raised with the ideas that if we got a good education, if we worked hard at a job, we got ourselves into a job, and we worked really hard, and we kept our nose clean, and we learned our skill very well, that we could live a lifetime of work in one place, that we would be able to retire with all the benefits and packages that the previous generation did coming out of World War II. We were raised with the ideology that there would be a pension, that there would be a health insurance for us, that we'd be we'd be able to buy a house and pay off our mortgages by the time we were 60, 65 years old at the time of retirement. We were raised with the ideas that you could afford to buy a car every 4 or 5 or 6 years, but many families didn't. They bought a car and they paid off the car in full. We were raised with the ideas that paying off your credit cards, paying off your debt was what we were supposed to do. Now, many of us didn't, especially the later half of the baby boom generation. They certainly didn't, and we are running very high debts. But we believed that we could sustain a quality of life that was sold to us in an ideology that was supposed to be around for our whole lifetimes and, for that matter, forever. So the middle class thought process and the way in which we were taught and the way we function was vastly different than the middle class of today, and how they perceive themselves and how they think of themselves in relationship to us and their lives going forward. And so the middle class has changed tremendously over the decades of my life. And when you start looking at how it's changed, you start to, the question raises is there really a middle class anymore? Do we really live in a world of America where a middle class is available, where a middle class really is happening for most Americans? Now, I will argue that there is a middle class for many Americans, but the have-nots are growing at a faster pace than ever before. Certainly at a faster pace after World War II than ever before, and perhaps at as fast of a pace going into the Depression generation of the late 1920s. So I would argue the fact that the middle class is becoming a class of have-nots far faster than a class of haves, especially when you relate that to the baby boom generation of our time, where we felt that we were a large mass of people that had the opportunity to have something that everybody else could have, that had something that everybody else could desire. We were all the same in terms of what we wanted to do and what we wanted to accomplish in our lives in terms of the middle class. And so with that in mind, I always believed that when I was growing up, that we would have something that would be very similar to the older folks in my generation.
And when you realize that is not taking place, it's a shocker. It sort of shocks you into the understanding that where did it go? Why is it not here? I did everything correct. At least I did everything I was taught to do. I did everything that I should have done. I did everything that was expected. I didn't mess up too bad. I just lived my life in such a way that we were taught to live. Well, today's middle class, I think, is very different. They themselves understand a different paradigm. They themselves understand that perhaps the things and the desires that we wanted for ourselves, they don't want, in terms of housing, in terms of acquiring property, in terms of education, and these types of structures. I was recently reading a report that now in America, we've become a citizenry of renters. There are more people renting now than at any time before, which I thought was amazing, because when I started my real estate career years ago, I realized that a large portion of people were actually wanting to become buyers and actually were buyers. In fact, the percentage of home ownership was growing through the bulk of my mid-career as a real estate broker and a loan broker. But now reading articles all the time where renters are the ones that are becoming the norm. And that means that the middle class sees itself as being more flexible, more transitory, more willing to move from one place to another, having to move from one place to another for a job, to keep a job, to hunt the job, to sustain a job. And that is changing the dynamic of America too as well. When you start looking at that, you start saying, well, we have a population that's moving from one place to another because they know that job is not going to be here, possibly for 10 or 15 or 20 years. And when you start looking at that, then that is a very, very strong indication on how the mentality is changing in the middle class. So what that then creates, different educational understandings. What that then creates is in terms of family structures. How do you keep family structure together? How do you keep the depth of family structure together? How do you do that? When that changes that, then neighborhoods start to change. Counties, cities, municipalities, townships, villages start to change. Your state starts to change. You have a much more people that are moving back and forth and in and out. And that changes the middle class in that ideology. So we do know that the middle class of today thinks differently because they know that what we had is no longer there. They know that what we had may not be there for themselves. And the ones that seem to be able to survive are the ones that can move around. All right, so that's something completely different. The way income is earned is completely different. Income and jobs were sustained because people felt that if they could be somewhere for 40 years, 30 years, or 20 years, then they would have a retirement. People today know that there is going to be no retirement for them unless they do it themselves, unless they create some sort of pattern of retirement funds on a regular basis over a long period of time. That's changed quite a bit from the middle class. My parents and many parents around me and my friends that were growing up, the parents believed that, they always had a job. Thus, they always could make that weekly money, and they always could put a little bit away, but they always knew the job was going to be there the next day. People today go to the employment thinking, is this my last day? Am I going to be replaced? Is the company going to move across the seas? Are we going to be cut back? Is there going to be a buyout? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, in terms of saving, how they save. And they know that there is no matching funds anymore from the employer for a pension. That is something that only the big giant unions, which are far and few between now in the country, and that's something that the municipalities, the cities still have, of course, because they have very powerful unions in all cities across America. So they still have a pension. Teachers' unions still have a pension. Military still has a pension. And, of course, the federal and state workers still have a pension. And that's an indication as to why our federal budget has increased, because employment, the largest employer in America, you'd be surprised, is not General Motors. The largest employer in America is the legal system. The legal system is the largest employer in America today. And all the side entities that feed and live off that legal system. I wonder why we have almost 3 million people in jails. I wonder why there's a reoccurring process. It's good money for people to be thrown in jail and kept there and revolved out and pushed back in. This is all about money. So, the way in which people are making their money and understanding, unless you work for one of those entities, then you got to put it together yourself. The previous generation never worried about that. Never worried one bit about that for the most part. The ones that did ended up a little better financially, but everybody knew that they were going to end up okay at the end of their life in terms of when you start looking at the differences of the middle class. The middle class is also different in terms of education. When I was growing up, education was different. And the baby boom generation, education was stressed. You go to college, you get that high school diploma. You have to get that high school diploma. You got to get into college. You have to learn something. It doesn't matter. Just go to college and graduate. Be the first in our family. A lot of the baby boom generation were the first graduates of college in their family history, going way back to the time that America began in many cases. Our generation was the first generation to have a complete college education versus the Depression generation. Many of the Depression folks didn't even get out of 6th grade. because they had to feed and eat and find water. I mean, it was a very hard time, and there were absolutely no social services at all, period, end quote. You mean you got the soup line if you were lucky from some church or some mayor or some organized crime member or something like that. I mean, you got the soup line. All right, but in terms of our generation, we were the first generation that knew if we graduated from high school, we went to college, we knew if we got a 4-year degree in anything, liberal arts, if we got a 4-year degree in math, if we got a 4-year degree in basket weaving, we knew that we would be able to have a college education and get a job. We knew that. And how did we know that? Because that's what we were taught. That's what we were told. How did we know that? Because that's the way the world worked. We knew we would have that job out there. We knew that job would give us a little more money over those that did not have the college education. Now, if you were so blessed to have some postgraduate education, a master's degree or a JD or a doctorate degree or become a doctor or something along that line, if you were blessed to be able to do that and accomplish that, then you had a greater chance to become a super executive at a company in respect to that. So, our generation thought process was different. Today's generation, in terms of education, is, am I going to be able to pay it when I graduate? Am I going to be able to have a job? Or am I going to have to work, digging ditches? And if I have to work digging ditches, then why should I spend all that time and money in furthering my education? It's a very logical question. So what we're finding now is many people, young people, are forestalling the college experience and are starting to go out to trade schools and trade techs and learn not a profession, but learning a trade. A plumber, an electrician, an IT, a computer repair, whatever a trade is that can be functioning for the next 10 to 15 and 20 years, then they're going to college. And some of them start their own businesses because they know General Motors and Rocketdyne and Boeing and McDonnell Douglas, these are not going to be jobs that are going to be there forever. They know that. They know that if they don't get along in the city or something in the judicial system or in the medical business, that it's just going to be catch the can, kick it down and catch the can. What's next? The average person today is going to go through 10 to 12 different complete job experiences by the time they land something that they stick to. 12. 10 to 12. That's a lot of different types of things. And when you have a $100,000 debt over your head, how do you pay that? Okay? So, the way they're thinking today, the middle class is different. Now, I talk about the middle class because I wanted to establish that we have a time right now in our planet and a time where finance and money and these issues are really important to all of us and really important. And how are we as a nation going to get along in terms of where we're supposed to go next? Or are we going to get to that supposed to go next with the same financial health and physical health? I started the show talking about stress. Stressed out on the freeway. Stressed out on the freeway before I get anywhere. I'm stressed out. People are really stressed out today. Stressed out about getting somewhere, stressed out about education, stressed out about are they going to be able to pay it off, stressed out about this and that. And that's really the key to a successful and happy life, is not having that crazy stress, being able to placate that stress, being able to diminish that stress somehow, being able to have a more functioning, healthy life where you have some freedom of thought. So I started looking at, what's happening in the finance world. What's going on right now in terms of the finance world? Where are we going as a country? Yeah, of course, you hear the big stories about, the Zuckerbergs and the multimillionaires and the multi-billionaires, Warren Buffett, and you hear about all of that, and you say to yourself, well, what does that do with me? What am I going to do? Where am I going to be in that picture? And when you start looking at yourself in terms of the middle class, what's happening? Well, the middle class is actually, this is weird. There are actually more people moving into the middle class, but there are more people moving into the wealthy class and more people moving out of the middle class. Now, if you think about what I just said, how could that be? How could you have more people moving into one group, more people moving out of a group, and more people moving into another group? Here it is. Incomes are not growing. Simple. Incomes are not getting higher, and everything else is getting more expensive. So what you have is you have a middle class where the income level has not grown that much over the last 10 years. And what you have is out of that middle class, you have people whose incomes are exploding and they're moving out of the middle class because their incomes are jumping. But the bodies that are in the middle class coming from the less fortunate class are growing. Because what's happening is incomes are dropping or they're staying stable. They're not going up. I don't care what you say. I don't care what anybody says. They're not going up like they were in my generation. They're not going up. They're staying very stable and dropping. Because those jobs that paid those kind of incomes that escalated every year, those union jobs, those jobs of mass employment are gone. Okay? So you're barely making it, and you having to work 2 to 3 jobs. So if you look at a giant piece of the pie, you got the middle class, where a few of the middle class is creating lots of income for themselves and moving up into the wealthy class. And you have the remaining people in the middle class where the incomes are staying stable and not going up, and they're just barely making that middle class. But you have a lower or poorer class where they're moving into the middle class, not because their work incomes are going up. Now, here it is. It's because their handouts are going up. Their handouts. Yeah. You see, we've taken the lowest part of our economic structure in this country, and we've conditioned that structure, those people, like I talked about how we were conditioned in our education as baby boomers, how we were conditioned and how the next generation is conditioned differently in terms of the middle class. What we're doing is we're subsidizing as a country more of the lower class with middle class ideology and money. So we're creating a lower class that's making as much money as somebody or more who's in the middle class working 1, 2, or 3 jobs. That's how you have one group going one way, but one group going the other way, but the group in the middle that I'm talking about is increasing. It's not that the people are doing more work, it's they're getting more freebies. 50 million people in this country are on EBT. 50 million people. My number might not be absolutely perfect. Okay, 40 million people. I think it's probably closer to 60 million. Now, I think half of those people are stealing from the system. I can tell you 10 people I know right now I've turned in. Tenants of mine stealing from the system to pay me my rent. You say, well, that's stupid, Jesse. You're getting your rent. No, it's not stupid. I'd rather have somebody in there working to give me my rent. They take care of things. You see, here's the thing. You have a whole bunch of people who can't afford to buy food, can't afford to pay for rent, can't afford medical, can't afford their water, power, electric, and gas bill, can't afford to register their car, can't afford to gas up a car, can't afford to keep a car healthy and safe so it doesn't kill somebody, can't afford to buy a car. They can't afford to buy a bicycle. They can't afford to take a vacation. They can't afford to put their kids in the best public school systems by moving to a different neighborhood if they need to. They can't afford to put them in private schools. They can't afford to do anything except survive. And why is that? It's generational to some degree. Yes. It's habit forming to some degree, like an alcoholic. Yes. Why should I do anything if I'm getting all this stuff? Look, if you're getting Section 8, you're getting $700 a month to $1,200, depending what part of county and the city you're in. That's free rent. You're getting food stamps, that's EBT. Okay? You're getting a stipend of what? $500 to $700 a month, depending where you're at and what city or county you're in and how many people are in your family. The more people in your family, the more food stamps you get. Let's just keep making more babies. More food stamps. Okay? All right. And they sell those food stamps on the street. That's a felony, but let me tell you, I've walked out many a store and a guy's over in their car selling food stamps and EBT stuff. Now the EBT goes on a card. So they've tried to placate that now so that stealing factor, that fraud is not there. Okay, but they still design it. Okay, so now you've got $800 and $800. You got $1,600 a month right there coming in. You need some clothes? You go down to the Goodwill. Because out the back door of the Goodwill, they'll give you free clothes if you fit the requirement. Or you go to your local church. Or you go to your local synagogue, or you go to your local charitable interest group, or you go to your local something that provides free clothing, shoes, underwear, bras, hats, jackets, gloves, shirts, suits. All right? So what's that worth? A couple $100 a month? $100 a month? That's $1,700. All right? So, hey, by the way, if you don't get enough on EBT, you can go down to your local giveaway station, and there's lots of groups that do that, and they'll give you a free bag of food on top of it. All right? Oh, by the way, how about this one? Free transportation. You get a card. You can get on public transportation for nothing if you qualify. That means if you don't have any income and you have more people in your family. Well, let's not forget about this one. How about this one? You'll like this one. How about all the books and stuff and the computers and stuff and all that stuff your kids need now to go to school and function right and learn? Oh, you can get all that for free too. Oh, and there's some more stuff you can get for free. How about this? You want a free car? I'd get you a free car because there are groups out there that buy old jalopy cars, chitty, chitty, bang, bang, chitty, chitty, bang, bang, we love you. Right? They buy those cars, they fix them up, right? They pay for the insurance, they subsidize the basic PL and PD in California insurance, and they provide people with the ability to have a car. You didn't know that one. See, all that adds up. That adds up to about $45,000 a year. $45,000 a year that you have to work for. You in the middle class, between $40,000 and $55,000 a year, you have to work for it. But the others don't. And that's where the middle class is growing. See, the middle class is growing into a subsidized middle class of America. Yeah, a subsidized middle class of America. Subsidized by your city, your county, your state, federal government, the churches, the freebies, the charitable events, the nonprofits. It's subsidized. And once you start getting stuff for free, hey, why should you go get a job? You'll never convert a young child who's 14 years old selling crack cocaine or selling meth on a corner who makes $1,000 a day to go work at McDonald's. It's just not going to happen. He or she's going to go to jail and become a better criminal. Spit out and then brought back. Spit out, then brought back. Because the largest employment system in this country today is the judicial system. It survives on the turnover. You think Walmart survives on the turnover? You ain't seen nothing yet. It's like Bachman-Turner Overdrive. You ain't seen nothing yet. See, that's what happens. And so when you start looking at where are we as a country and a culture, you have the super wealthy, the elite 1%. Then you have a large percentage of folks who are moving into the wealthy upper percentages, right? And then you have a middle class that's not growing by jobs. It's growing by subsidies. See, this is what people are not seeing. Look, this is why you come to us here at www.thepowervoices.com, okay? This is why you enter my world, the world according to Torero, because I look at things in a little bit different slant. All right? You know, it's like you look at that picture and they say, what does that picture really say? What does that picture really say? You stand there, you stare at the picture like me, a dummy. I'm walking down the street. I come up to this art studio, and there's this picture, and it says, there's a picture in the picture. And I stand there at that picture, and I look at that picture, and I stare at that picture, and I look at that picture, and I stare at that picture. And I ask somebody who comes and looks at it for 5 minutes, and they start laughing because it's a funny picture. And I said, what are you laughing at? Well, I'm laughing at the picture. I said, well, you laughing at all the lines and the dots? I can't see nothing. And they say, well, you can't see the dog? I said, what dog? I see a bunch of lines and dots. That's what I see. Hey, what's going on? They tell me what's going on. So I close my eyes, shake my head, take a breath of fresh air, get a glass of water, come back, and I look at it, trying to look for exactly what's going on. What was I told? I still can't see it. See, that's what we do here. We allow you to see the picture in the picture. Especially on the Jesse T Show, Monday through Friday from 5 to 6, straight on the point, live at 5. We look at things a little bit out of the box. You see, the middle class isn't growing. What's growing is the subsidized middle class. And that, my friends, is frightening. That in itself is very, very concerning. And the reason why it's concerning, because when you have a bunch of people that are being subsidized by a very few people, you have tyranny beyond your imagination starting to happen. You have your liberties taken away silently, quietly, in the dead of night. That's frightening. And you don't even know you're a part of it. You don't even know that you're creating your own destruction, your own disaster. Yeah. Because once you start getting stuff for free, why should you do anything else? And it doesn't matter what color you are. It doesn't matter what part of the country you're from. It doesn't matter your ideology. It doesn't matter about anything. It only matters that you're getting something for free and you become addicted to it. I have seen it over and over and over, being a property owner, being a manager of rental properties, owning my own properties. I've seen it over and over and over. You got to ask yourself, is that the kind of country you want to live in? Do we want to live in that kind of country? Well, who's creating this and why? Who's creating this and why? It's a design. It's a design to change America. This is why I wanted to talk about the generations of the baby boomers, the Depression generation, and this next generation inheriting the world today and the future generation to come. This is a warning, and the warning is really simple, that if we want America to be the America that it should be, the America it can be, the America that we all believe in our souls and our minds, the mythological America, the fantasy America, the America of folklore, the America that we think it should be. If we want that America to happen and continue, we have to change our ways as a nation. We have to change our ways as a group of people. We have to understand it's being done to us. That's what's happening. And we're allowing it, and we're pushing it, and we're doing it to ourselves. www.thepowervoices.com. Jesse Terrero, the Brown Beauty, is on duty at AVTV Live in our digital broadcasting network. Of course, at www.facebook.com/Jesse Terrero. And you can catch us on www.thepowerofvoices.com. We are all over the social network right there through thepowerofvoices.com. Go to our great website. Check out all the great shows and topics and hosts. They're all got something cool, all got something great to say. We're here to teach, we're here to play, we're have fun, we laugh, we cry, we tell it like it is. That's what we do here online at www.thepowervoices.com. And you can check out our show live at its streams on all the streaming facilities. Primarily, our number one is YouTube, and we stream there. And then we're doing more and more of that as we bring more of our shows live in person, put some reality, some visual aspects to it, where you can learn and enjoy and become pals with your hosts in a different flavor and a different format. And that's what we're looking to do here over the next 6 to 8 to 10 to 12 months. A lot of exciting things are coming, and I'm so proud to be here and have the opportunity to be able to, work together closely with management here and move this into something so unique and so different that nobody else is doing. We've got great plans for you, and we want you to stick around, tell a friend, tell everybody you can. You join us here. I guarantee and I promise you that when you go through our guide of shows, you will find something that you will fall in love with. You will find something that will stir your imagination and pull at your heartstrings, because that's what we do here. We bring it live, local, real, down, dirty, raw, nitty, and gritty. Hey, no one can do that. It's me, Jesse T. I do it just like I do it. I can only be me, Hey, what can I tell you? It's a Brown Beauty, always on duty from 5 to 6 on Monday through Friday. But I want you to know, as we lose you right now on my Facebook channel, I'm going to restart it right now because I'm out of time. We got you on the other one at www.thepowervoices.com. So come back with me, folks who got me on my channel here, as we connect the two together. Come back with me as I end that. Now, I want to let you know the reason why that we have to talk about this stuff, and I tend to talk about this stuff a lot more than most people. And here's why. I have a great concern. I have a great concern on what is happening with the mentality of our country. You see, it starts in the soul and the brain, and we have to change our ideology and our ways to a point that we can begin to reconstruct a better nation for everybody, We have to understand the world has changed around us, and we have to be leaders in this world. We have to first start at home. If it's meant to be, it's up to me. That's you and me making a difference, you and me reaching out. And this is why the generations are different, but the generations have to understand they're intertwined. And the most important thing, the great fear of allowing ourselves to be a subsidized nation, a socialist nation. They're not calling that. A socialist nation which is growing in the middle class and the underbelly, under the elites. That's what they want, the wealthy elites. I'm not saying they're bad, but I'm saying they are there to protect their interests. Well, we have to protect our interests, and we are the people, and the people are strong because we have numbers, and we have to have the intelligence, and we have to have the courage to stand up and say, no more. It's not going to happen on my watch. It's not going to happen in my time. I'm going to make this place a better place for my children. I'm going to make this place the place that America should be, the good old USA. It may not be 1826, but it's 2016, and it's got to be 2016 right. It's got to be 2016 the best. And how you understand that is to understand what the heck is going on. When you understand what's going on, then you can begin to change and fix it. If you don't know what the problem is, you're just whizzing in the wind and getting all wet. So, the problem. We have to stop this subsidized nation that we're creating. We have to have better education. We have to have better involvement with parents and grandparents. We have to have better churches getting involved, better athletic adventures getting involved. We got to put the pedophiles and the perverts away forever. We have to make our cities and our towns and our neighborhoods and our streets safe again. We have to take care of our children. They're the future. And they're the ones that are going to take care of you. We have to make our government accountable. And if they're not accountable, we fry their butts. Out. Get out of here. Throw them in jail. Look at their past, because their past is going to tell you who they are today. You want a better future? That's what we have to do. Join together under one at www.thepowerofvoices.com. The Jesse T Show, live at 5, straight on the point. The Brown Beauty is